If you missed the show on ZFM last night, here's what happened.
ZFM Stereo is untouchable. The platform with Ruvenico on ZFM Stereo.
Good evening and welcome to the platform. I'm Ruvenico and we bring you this program Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday right here on ZFM Stereo. Tonight we are in studio with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Chris Mutsvanga, and he is the newly elected chairman of the Zimbabwe Liberation of War Veterans Association. Good evening, sir, and welcome back to ZFM.
Oh, welcome ZFM. I'm happy to be here.
I know you've been here many times and we've discussed many different issues with you. Tonight, we would like to focus on your new election and, of course, the War Veterans Association itself and the operational. But we want to start off firstly with a little bit of history. Tell us a little bit about the history. In fact, before that, congratulations on your election.
Thank you very much.
Now, tell us a little bit about the history of the War Veterans Association.
Well, the War Veterans Association is an association founded on the basis of an act which was passed by Parliament, which is the War Veterans Act, and it basically covers the war veterans. In my instance, of the Chimrenga War, the second Chimrenga War,
right? Which
is the war which was fought for the independence of this country from 1966 in a military fashion, but probably earlier on, starting in armed or violent confrontation in 1962-63, when the liberation movement realized that they were dealing with a very intransigent white racist minority,
right,
which was not prepared to cede power. And afterwards it was decided that the only way to deal with the situation was military confrontation. And in 1966 at Chinhoyi, the first blood was shed by the armed combatants of Zimbabwe, those great visionaries of young people, 7 of them, who I'm awed by their sense of sacrifice and their sense of destiny, right, that even if we're going to die, it's going to be big. And it took another dimension in the 70s with the Northeast Front. That was after the other bigger confrontation which combined the ANC of South Africa and ZIPRA in the Wange area, where Ambassador Mpoko and Jacob Zuma were participants. Probably, maybe Ambassador Mpoko, they know more about that. Zuma was not. But this is the ANC of South Africa.
Right.
Then on the Zanla side, it took root in the Northeast campaign of 1971, 72, 73, which embedded the guerrilla movement in the people of Zimbabwe, fish in water. That's Mao's, Chairman Mao. But the most glorious part was the 1975, 1979 period, when a whole population of young people left school, left ordinary life in the Harare, in cities of Zimbabwe, in rural areas, and streamed in Mozambique, into Mozambique in the light of the Frelimo victory. That's also when the present president of the Republic crossed into Mozambique to lead that war after Chitepo had been died.
Right.
So this basically is the birth of the modern military prowess of Zimbabwe. Something which...
And what is its role now?
The role now is that survivors of that epic encounter between the Zimbabwean nation and British implanted racists in Zimbabwe, the survivors are the ones who then asked the parliament to pass an act to recognize that eventually, now that they're in peacetime, they may not be soldiers. Some of them were being demobilized. Some of them did not want anyway to be soldiers because they were people who just fought for their country, nothing else. So they said, we may need welfare. We may need to see that our participation in the New Zimbabwe can have meaning.
Right.
And that's when they formed the act was passed and the association was passed.
Sure.
Italy somehow was not very active, and because of its inactivity, a lot of things which were unfair to the comrades, which were really a scandal for the country, were done about the neglect of their welfare.
Right, and we're going to get into that later on in the program.
Yes, that's
because the welfare is going to be a lot about what we discussed this evening.
That's what then brought the big confrontation, just in the 80s, when Comrade Hunzi came onto the picture.
Right.
I cannot mention about this association without paying homage to the great Dr. Hunzi, who then confronted the national body politic and aroused the conscience of the Zimbabwean nation once again, that their sons and daughters who had done so much were not being properly taken care of.
Right.
And that's where we are today.
Great. Okay, so as I introduced you, you are the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, but for the purpose of this program, we're going to pay a lot more to Home Affairs, right? And as we said, discussing the war veterans. Now, as the new chairman, how does this feel? Is it more exciting than being the Deputy Minister? And there was also a question that was more specific, saying, which title is higher? This is from Rims Timothy on Facebook. Ranzi, which is the higher office? Here, war veteran chairman or as Deputy Minister?
The highest office I can ever hold in my life is comrade, because we fought as comrade. So any title which comes after comrade, whether I'm the chairman of the war veterans or deputy minister or ambassador or director of a company or whichever, they are all subordinate to that one. Because the beauty about comrade is that here we are individual young people living at a personal decision-making level en masse, and then uniting in Mozambique, then being formed into this army, then fighting together, dying together for no absolute personal gain. Just saying that we want the rebirth of Zimbabwe.
Sure.
And that's so I will never, anything which I can do in my life, it never surpasses
the comrade. Now, beneath that, right, to answer my question, you are a deputy minister and you are the chairman of the war veterans. Which office is higher? If you can put it that way, granted.
In hierarchical order, when I say comrade, the chairman war veterans one is highest.
Right.
Because this is from my comrades. And the greatest pleasure of my life was when I was in Mutsvanga last week, being unanimously chosen by my colleagues, both from the Zipra and Zanla side, to say, we want you to be our leader. I felt so good. Some of them I'd never seen them since we trained or we met at Nyadzonya or we met at Junda.
Right.
That was my first time. I thought some of them were dead. Those who, yeah, I thought some of them were dead, and they were now. I was now meeting them for the first time after so many years.
Why is that? I mean, you've been part of the War Veterans Association, and so have they. And you did mention just now that there has been a little bit of inactivity and neglect of the War Veterans Association. Is this why? How can you be stunned that Rangwe, that Chiriko?
Yeah, because we were thrown at the deep end at independence. The way we came about is probably we should have marched into power, but we didn't march into power. We were prepared to go through a democratic process of elections, which then entailed that we make a lot of compromises, and we pretty much left the stage to the president to direct affairs. And because we had faith in our president, things
and the president is the patron, I believe.
Is the patron.
Now, you were...
so we never got a chance. We never got a chance to really find... No, more than that. We became, many of us became destitute. We have lost 5 years of our lives, of our only lives. We don't have 2 lives. We lost them. So we had now, and there was nobody to take care of us. And we had to go back to resume life at basic level we lacked to struggle. Some of us in our families, some of us had, wives, and all these things trying to make up for education.
Right.
We just became too busy
with you trying to catching
up with lost 5 years.
And look where you are now. So you did a good lot of catching up.
Well, I was like, boss, I was already at university.
Right.
But many of my comrades
have not been.
That's the
challenge.
That's the challenge we have.
Before we get there, Honourable, you were nominated unopposed and, of course, elected. Why do you think that, the war veterans chose you? What did they see in you to lead them?
I have been everything in my life. I fought in that war. I came back. I became a diplomat. I served in many countries. I went to university in America, in New York. I did my studies in New York up to master's level. I know international finance. I've been an ambassador. I've been a businessman. I've been all these other things. But
basically, Magadzidza.
I've always been smart.
Doesn't this make some of the leaders that chose you even a little bit bitter? Like you said, when the war ended, you all went off on different paths, and not all of you have had the privileges and the opportunities that you have had, and not all of them are in the office that you sit in. So is there no resentment when those that haven't made it look at you and say, "Ko isusu makati kanganwasi, isusu tasarira matirasasi"?
It's not. They actually admire. From the unanimous selection, they actually admire that I could go back to them. I could go back and
say that I'll lead you now and try and help you if you haven't.
Not really help each other.
Right.
Yes, to try to help, because I've always been capable. Remember, I was not made my education. I didn't get education because I was. It's a reward of post-independence. I went to when I was the smartest in the country. When I went to study law school, I was. Yes, I was.
How can we validate that?
Ask any of my colleagues. Paddington Gargo was my colleague.
Right.
Eric Martinenga from the former MDC minister. They were all. I went into law school. I had a full scholarship from the Rhodesians.
Right.
So I had made it.
You switched on.
Yeah.
Now, for over 10 years, almost 11 years, there had not been elections in the War Veterans Association. Why is that?
Well, these are the birth pangs of any organization, and inevitably some people are not as diligent and some people are not as honest. Clearly. Who
are you referring to? Because you were a member of this association. Why did you allow it to happen?
Most of the time I was out of the country in the last 10 years. Maybe I was inside the country, but I was preoccupied with other things.
So basically you were not involved, or you didn't care? You were too busy.
I tried to help the administration. I included, even the former chairman, the outgoing chairman, the outrageous chairman, Jabulani Sibanda.
He's outrageous?
Yeah.
Why is he outrageous?
See, we have a patron and we are military people. We are actually a unit of the Zimbabwe Army, the reserve unit. So allegiance to our patron is very important. But we also, on the military side, we are under the Zimbabwe Army. So we follow a military structure. If war were to break out today, all the war veterans would be called up as part of the army.
Right.
With our commander-in-chief, the president. Now to see Jabulani going to Manicaland, looking for political posturing, and then saying those things about his patron, about his wife, about trying to... to me, that is the ultimate outrage. Then I realized that the Jabulani was never really a trained and properly formatted war veteran. Because you don't do things that, because we are militaries, it's a commander-in-chief. You respect your commander.
So what evidence do you have against him? What did he do?
I saw it on television.
What did he say? Right.
Before that, I wasn't particularly bothered. First of all, I wondered why a war veteran, a leader of a war veteran, will all find all his time in rural areas, from one village to another. Harare is the center of power. If you need capacity, it's like electing a president. Then he spends all his time wandering in rural areas, running the country from Zarabani or from Nyabira or from Cholocho You can't do that. Harare is the center of power.
But Honorable Mutsvanga, what did he actually do and say? I know you're mentioning that he was going around in these areas, but what did he say that threatened the president and the first lady for him to be expelled?
He says, my president is carrying out a bedroom coup against who? He is the ultimate leader of the country. So clearly, Jabulani transferred his allegiance from the patron to another person. And all the allegations are that...
Who's the other person?
Which is the vice president of the party.
So, okay, and from what you're saying, you're making it seem as though they are camps, that there is opposing sides in ZANU-PF at the moment. These are no longer allegations. This is apparent.
There's only one faction in ZANU-PF.
Which is?
Which is this Mujuru faction against the president. No other faction.
Okay, so there's the Mujuru faction, according to you. There's only one faction.
Yes, that's the only faction.
So if you are not seeming to be for the president, you are against him, or you are of the Mujuru faction.
Yes.
So you're saying that the vice president is not pro-President Mugabe?
Yes, it's on public record. She just published a letter yesterday which had an advert which is insinuations of presidential material against your own boss. That's not right.
So your new position, granted you were elected, we never know what happens behind elections or the build-up to, but should people assume perhaps that this was part of the tussling that's happening in the ZANU-PF party at the moment, for you to have been given this new chairmanship?
No,
Is it part of this game?
I was not given. I would challenge that was a secret ballot which was done by ZEC among 4 veterans who participated in that war. And it was, if Chabu, I can stand against anybody, but I would win. This is a secret ballot, so it's not about...
You would win against anybody. You're that confident.
Yes.
So so that's also you saying that you are honored to have been given this new seat.
It's absolutely.
But
honor.
you also are certain that nobody else would do it better than you.
No, I'm not saying I can. But if the starting point is what people choose. And there's no better judgment than what people choose.
I know that the Sanyati legislator, Blessed Rene Sugeza, was seconded by the MASH West War veterans, but he backed down and he put his weight behind you. Why did that happen?
Because we are great comrades with Runesu. He has always admired me, and I've always admired him. We actually fought together. He trained in Romania in advanced military training. I trained in Yugoslavia. So we've crisscrossed the whole of our life. He knows our different capabilities. He deferred to me. I'm very much grateful for that kind of recognition from a comrade.
So you think he backed down out of respect for you?
Yes,
100%.
He has got great respect for me.
All right. And
I'm very humbled by that's what
gesture.
That's what only comrades can do.
Before we take our break, you touched on the vice president and how there's only one faction in ZANU-PF, which is her faction,
yes.
Vice President Mujuru.
That's very definite.
The question that came from one of my colleagues earlier is, why not ask the president to fire her as opposed to telling her to resign?
Those are the options of the president. I wish I was president. I would probably have fired you yesterday if I was the president.
This is ZFM Stereo. My station, your station.
The People Station. ZFM Stereo. The clever conversation will continue right after these messages.
ZFM Stereo, come alive in the nighttime. We spit freestyle, we don't have to write rhymes. We flow unrehearsed, we spit a killer verse. When it comes to other stereos, it might be the worst. Cause we just do what we do when we're in the room. How'd you know if that's the truth? Yo, we'll live and proof. Other FMs just got smacked, and they better think twice before they try to clap back. Hi, I'm Yaya, and you're listening to ZFM Stereo. My station, your station. It's everybody's station.
The platform with Ruvenico on ZFM Stereo.
Welcome back to the platform. I'm Ruvene Kaur, and we are in studio tonight with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Christopher Mutsvanga, and he is the newly elected chairman of the Zimbabwe Liberation of War Veterans Association. We've been discussing the history of the association and the election process that has landed him in this new office. And of course, he was explaining that, if anything, his highest recognition is that of being a comrade. So those that are wondering whether he puts being a deputy minister or being the chairman of the war veterans higher than the other, he says that, look, comrade is the highest, which also then links his position as the chairman of War Veterans Association and puts that a little bit higher than being deputy minister. You know, your situation is a little bit precarious because, you know, one would question if there's ever a situation in which you have to choose being the chairman of the war veterans versus being the deputy minister. Would you ever march, for example, as the leader of the war veterans against your own government, if it ever came to that?
No, our own government, if it's an elected government, I would never march against it. I would never march against it unless, well, protest is a democratic right.
Right.
We had our late chairman, Hunzi, leading war veterans to march, to emphasize a point, to make our government remember that it came from the people. It came from the sacrifice of them. So if our government deviates from the people, if our governments decide not to care about those who fought for the independence of this country, I would definitely march.
So you would lead a demonstration as the chairman of the War Veterans Association, but also as the deputy minister against the same government?
My allegiance, I want to emphasize, belongs to the war veterans and to the liberation fighters of this country. That's my...
not to the government that gave you this power.
The government we brought about this government.
Okay, so because you were instrumental in this government.
We're not instrumental.
You made it.
We made it. We are not instrumental.
Okay, so there's never a point, you don't feel you'll ever reach a point where you have to choose between one or the other, because you're saying your allegiance is to the War Veterans Association. So
my allegiance is to the tradition of the fighters of Zimbabwe, who organized the totality of the Zimbabwean people, hamlet by hamlet, village by village,
right,
town by town,
right,
to confront and win,
right,
to beg the nationhood. That's where my allegiance lies. So out of that allegiance comes my identity with the government. Now, if it's a different government which is elected and it decides to go against the wishes of the people, then, like, we made choices at an individual level. We were not commanded. We went one by one to war. To say this is untenable, right, and we found the country.
What if it's the same government in power? Let's assume it's in within the next 3 years, right? Where your government, right, or our government, right, and the leading party, let's say the president. You said that there is only one faction, and you said the president right now, President Robert Mugabe. If anything happens under our government that undermines or harms war veterans and their dependents, right? And you need to make a demonstration and take serious action, nothing violent, but you need to take a position, right? But you belong to the same government. What would you do?
I would demonstrate, because it's about...
Would you resign as the deputy minister and say, I choose the war veterans?
You see, I came to government back voluntarily. I'm a businessman. People don't know. I'm the one who founded the digital age in this country. I did the first internet backbone for Zimbabwe. Nobody knew what it meant. .com, that's me. I'm a telecommunications consultant from Boston University. I put the first switch for the .com era before nobody knew what it was about. I was the first one to put the switch for the cell phones in Zimbabwe. I had left government. I was doing well as a businessman.
Would you step down as your role as government deputy minister?
I'm coming to that.
Right.
The only reason why I came back to government was when the MDC came about, and it was beginning to give a parochial agenda to undermine the gains of the young people who sacrificed. I came back to government and abandoned my business.
Right.
That's how I came back. This is how I value my tradition as a war veteran. So my status about the young men and women of my age who were smarter than anybody in this country, who had a vision and decided to say, my life is nothing, Zimbabwe is everything. That's for posterity. That's ageless. That's what countries' legends are made of. That's where I belong.
So you would choose the War Veterans Association if you had to, and you would tender your resignation as deputy minister.
I would choose the tradition of the war veterans, not just the association is just a welfare expression of the war veterans.
So to answer my question, yes, you would resign if you needed to.
I don't need
a job.
To be very frank, I never needed a job in government. I'm too smart to need a job in government. Maybe for others, that's okay. I don't need a job in government.
So why are you in government?
I'm in government because I feel that I want to decide, to help decide the destiny of my country in the tradition of the people, young men and women of my age who never came back home.
Honorable Mutsvanga, you've come a long way with our country. And if you're too smart, why are you deputy minister and not the minister?
Governments are made by those who are elected to be the ultimate. You are posing that question to me. I'm not the one who should be answering that question.
Who should be answering it?
Those who make governments.
But do you not ask that question to yourself? You seem to value yourself quite highly and say, look, I don't need this. I'm smart enough to be somewhere else. In fact, I'm too smart for this.
Yes.
So surely you're ambitious. And you think to yourself,
No. If I'd been ambitious, I would not have left university to go to war. Because in war, you die. So if I was ambitious, I would have remained here and gone through university and become a top lawyer like anybody. That's linear.
Is that the mentality of a war veteran? And I'm asking this more socially now. That when you tell yourself,
yes.
So you go in there expecting to die or hoping not to die. What's the mentality?
You go there to say, I love my country, my life means nothing. The great future of the Zimbabwe people matters more than my personal life.
Let's hear from
you only have one life. You don't have to.
Let's hear from these great Zimbabwean people who are asking questions and posing comments on our WhatsApp platform. This is the platform. It's your platform. Send your messages, your comments, and of course you can call us live during the program to speak to Honorable Mutsvanga, who's live in studio at the moment. 0772-168-045. We've got a comment from Ticha B in Manikaland. We can change goalposts and players, but as long as you elect people in various positions of office without addressing corruption, which is a cancerous disease eating our societal fabric, we are going nowhere. The only animal in Zimbabwe which is not corrupt is only a baboon. It's a very passionate statement from a Zimbabwean. I'm not sure that directly attends to the questions and the issues we're discussing now, so we'll move past that one. Janzi, Mr. Mutsvanga, please stop lying. Ru, Hansi, please stop lying. You're just like the rest. You lie to these people just to get positions. You have been aloof all along. You're a chancer, simply taking advantage of the fight against Vice President Mujuru. Mutsvanga is a joke. All Jabulani Sibanda said is true. Hence, ZANU-PF does not tolerate the truth.
Well, you may like your Jabulani Sibanda. That's I can't forgo your love for him. But I'm not a chancer. I came back to government precisely because I felt the future of Zimbabwe was under threat by the MDC, and I came back and fought for it. For Jabulani, he must owe allegiance to the patron of the War Veterans Association. He decided not to. He may have decided that he preferred the number 2, and that's said because she's not the patron. She's just another war veteran like anybody else. So if he decides to change allegiances against the patron who is elected by the people of Zimbabwe, then we part ways.
This issue here, I just want us to touch on something. When Jabulani Sibanda was expelled, before all of that happened, what was your assessment of his term as the leader of the War Veterans Association?
I tried to help him. He didn't even know how to use a computer.
Well, we can't criticize him for that. Many people don't know how to use a computer. That's not a sign of incompetency.
I'm only showing you the extent to which I had commitment to my leader.
Right.
I feel that as somebody who is in a modern era, he's younger than me, and he speaks and is literate. I feel that he needed that instrument called a computer. Just like you say, I don't need a notebook. You would have said, I don't want to write with a pen. So I said, no, let me try to. And we gladly, me and my wife, we were both war veterans. We went out of our way. We wanted to make him understand the complexity of the job which was before him and what it entailed. You need information. If you can't have a computer, how do you know what's happening in the world around you? We try to help him. He was supposed. I'm coming into an organization which doesn't even have an office. I'm coming to an organization where money from the members was squandered. I'm coming to an organization where there is not even means to there's nothing about this one.
So for 11 years when there weren't elections, Honorable Mutsvanga, and you said that you did not have enough time to monitor how the association was working, although you were part of it. Yes. You said you're an inactive member. Now, and to criticize and to analyze and to say this was not working, why were you not paying attention all along? Where were you? You know, where was everybody else? Can we say that the association has been dead?
It's virtually dead, except it became mercenary. It looks like somebody was funding this. He had all these activities which he was doing, and somebody was doing it without putting a proper organizational structure in place. Without being you need to, are you more active in a rural area or you're active in Harare, canvassing, lobbying the centers of power in government, ministers who decide the budget of Zimbabwe, to say this is the way we should direct it? Where do you want to be effective? He chose to be going all over the country. And that's
I would like to ask my question a little bit more directly, Honorable Mutsvanga, and say, when Jabulani Sibanda was expelled, right? He was expelled under the allegation that he was going against the president and the first lady, Aditi, and planning that march to State House, etc. So before all of that, right, this is why I was asking what you thought about his term. And from what you're saying, you're implying that he had been inefficient and that the War Veterans Association was not working. It was dysfunctional. So why does it take him going against the president and the first lady and planning a march for everyone to notice that he should be expelled? Surely someone should be expelled for incompetence. And if he had been incompetent to lead the War Veterans Association, he should have been expelled on those grounds. There are
two aspects of the war veteran. The welfare aspect, which we are talking about. That's what I'm talking about. But there's also the visionary aspect about. I'm telling you about young people, and I want to remind you, when we went to war, a father professor at St. Augustine was asked by the BBC, why in 75, why are all these people at Penalonga and the other missions going to school? He says, I may not know, but the only thing which I can explain is that the most brilliant and the most intelligent ones are the ones who have gone to war. We had a vision. This is the most important aspect of the war veteran. It's not like a Boy Scout association or some tennis association or some women's club. It's not. This is an association of people who in their lives, for nothing of their own, decided to make a sacrifice for Zimbabwe. That's the missing, that's the visionary aspect. That's why it touches on when you then go and start impinging on the integrity of that association, then everybody gets galvanized. So welfare things, it takes a lot to galvanize anybody. But the real fabric of the war veterans is the visionaries who made Zimbabwe possible. That's what Jabu touched on, and that's what outraged everybody. Remember, the army, a lot of the generals, there are more educated, degreed people in the army per square kilometer than in the CBD area, if you don't know.
That's an interesting statistic and an interesting way to look at it.
We were young people.
So just repeat that again.
There are more people with degrees at KG6 than in the whole CBD area per square kilometer.
Honorable Mutsvanga, there's comments here. Ranzi, why are war veterans forcing Vice President Mujuru to resign? President Havasisina Masimba atorwa nema war veteran.
No, we are fighting for our patron. Vice President Mujuru is just another war veteran. Remember, the title president and vice president comes after independence, after we have delivered freedom to this country. Before that, we were just comrades, and Vice President Mujuru was just a comrade like Christopher Mutsvanga.
But like right now, she is not just a comrade, she is the vice president of Zimbabwe.
Yes, but when it comes to the authority which makes her be where she is today, which is an elected authority, the only elected person nationally is the president, not here.
So surely
she is only elected in a constituency there, not at national level.
But she's still the vice president.
She is the vice president by appointment.
Right.
So you respect the person who appoints you because he is nationally elected.
And somebody who did not appoint her should award her respect, correct?
Somebody who should
the people that did not appoint her should award her respect.
We respect, like I respect you, but you are not an elected person. nationally. I respect you. I respect the young man.
Do you respect the vice president?
More than anybody. Actually, I'm in an individual's position. I know the vice president the day we met the president for the first time we're there together. So I know her history very well. I'm very much...
That's
what I'm coming to.
Do you respect her? Because during this program, Honorable, you've been saying she is just a comrade like everyone else. She is just a comrade.
What's wrong?
She is the vice president.
The vice president is an elected position after independence.
Right, and she is right now in that office.
Yes, but it's not a nationally... She should first respect the boss, her boss who is nationally elected, who is her patron. Because when we come to the war veterans, the vice president is a war veteran like anybody, like me, like any other. She's not special in that status. So if she challenges our patron, who is her patron, without being an elected person, because she has got some friends also who are making her feel big, then we'll make sure that we address it.
Do you have friends that make you feel big, Honorable?
I've always said they all make me feel like I'm head over heels. But I've refused. The humility of being a comrade, the humility of realizing who you are when you were fighting, makes you realize that you cannot be pampered, because in war, if you get too big-headed, you die.
Anzi, is the Honorable saying that vice president is a ceremonial position?
Of course. The only, don't you know your constitution? The elected person nationally is the president, not the vice president.
Another comment here. This is from Billy Gwynny on Facebook earlier. Janzi, Mutsvanga is the greatest bootlicker of all times. Munumukuru akadaru. What say you?
I don't know the bootlick anything. I told you I'm in government voluntarily because I wanted to defend the country when the MDC came along. I don't need a job in government. I made more money as a business person than as a minister. I had to sacrifice to leave my business interests to go back to government.
So you don't need to be a minister, but you want to be?
For the sake of the tradition which we fought for.
This is ZFM Stereo, the platform. Stay tuned.
ZFM Stereo is untouchable. The clever conversation will continue right after these messages. Music for the grown and sexy. Shake your body. The sweet and sassy. Is your day. The fine and funky. Got to love ya, yeah. Weird and wacky. We're the station that beats all the competition. And we'll prove it as soon as we have any competition. we burn down the house. ZFM Stereo.
ZFM Stereo, come alive in the nighttime. We spit freestyle, we don't have to write rhymes. We flow unrehearsed, we spit a killer verse. When it comes to other stereos, it might be the worst. Cause we just do what we do when we're in the room. How'd you know if that's the truth? Yo, we'll live and prove. Other FMs just got smacked, and they better think twice before they try to clap back. Hi, I'm Yaya, and you're listening to ZFM Stereo. My station, your station. It's everybody's station.
The platform with Ruvenico on ZFM Stereo.
Welcome back to the platform. Honorable Mutsvanga is explaining something to me off the air, but our break is over and we're back live, and he's explaining that he does not want the vice president to fall, but he would propel her to fall. What does that even mean?
It means because she's my comrade, I would never wish anything bad to come to her.
Right.
So if she has good sense and she backs off this confrontation between her and her president who is elected, it would be a great thing for this country, because we have spent the last 45 years together, she and the president. But if she then challenges that president in a zero-sum game to say, I want power, my allegiance would be to president. I have to defend my president and my commander-in-chief, not here.
I think let's leave that one for a moment and talk about the welfare of the war veterans, right, before we run out of time, because I know this discussion can overlap into 2 hours very easily. So let's look at the welfare of the war veterans in particular, right? After the $50,000, this was given many years ago, right, to the war veterans. Things looked good for a small period, but there seems to not have been anything done thereafter, and their welfare is in dire straits at the moment. What is your plan to work on this area when it comes to their welfare?
The first thing is we want to get a data bank of our comrades, those who are surviving and those who are now widowed.
Database yo yaiko.
It's not there.
So what has been the
there is only the vetting procedures which were done, and that information is available. But anything, and each time I'm pained, I go to bury a comrade, and all that can be said about a comrade, a war veteran, is his Chimrenga name was this, nothing else.
Right.
These are the people who fought the biggest epic military battle against the foremost imperial power which is Africa has ever known, and won. There's nobody in Africa who equals us in military capability as Zimbabwe.
Right.
And there is no history. And when you have no history of the actual fighters, war veterans, then means you don't even have your own history as a country.
Sure.
This is the tragedy.
Sure.
And each time when I speak and I try to narrate what happened in the war on television, everybody I meet in the street says, but where is the book? We are very literate.
Are you writing a book? With all your education, Honorable. Are you writing a book?
I actually would think, when you were saying which do you want to be a government minister, I would rather prefer to write books, because I write about these great fights by my colleagues. I was at the battlefront.
But are you writing a book
yes,
currently?
I am.
You are?
I am working on a book.
Okay, sure. Now the position of war veterans, we talk of, there's been no investment, we're still on the welfare issue, where some other colleagues have been superintending the allocation of mining concessions, hunting concessions, and some war veterans didn't even get land under the land reform program. How do we justify this? If they don't deserve it, who does? Because what happened is there was a divorce from power. We came in and got into a reconciliation, and somehow the government got busy, and everybody decided to appoint everybody who has been anywhere. A lot of the government got busy, yes. So the war veterans were sidelined. Exactly. And some war veterans didn't get land because the government was busy doing what? You look at the cabinet today. I want to be very candid. Mm-hmm. There are no war veterans there. The vice president, maybe Minister Mnangagwa, of late Opa Muchinguri has gone back. Kembo Mohadi, Sandy Moyo, the by and large, Sidney Sekramai, and the others later day arrivists like Mtidmas Mutasa, whom we don't know, from the war. There's that cabinet. It's a paradox, but for 34 years. The country has been ruled without the vision of the people who fought and delivered. You seem to separate those that fought in the war from those that did. Even yes. Just now, the examples you listed some names. Yes, yes. Does that matter that much to you? It does, because once you lose the soul of the struggle, the physical soul of the struggle. Right. Remember, the struggle is material. It's people with bodies and arms and eyes dying. Right. This is material. Right. Once they do not become a factor in government, then you don't expect those who have no knowledge of that period to actually live to that vision. There has not been a proper mix. So is this why the war veterans have been neglected? That your government is lacking leadership of people that have fought in the war and understand what war veterans went through? That is the fundamental problem. So is that let's now hear you offer a solution. Do you need a government that had fought in the war in order to take care of war veterans? Or do you need yourself as a new chairman to fix this problem? I came back to government because I was a war veteran who was capable, and I realized what was happening, and I offered. So are you the answer? I'm not the answer. I need to be an answer together with my colleagues. I need to organize them. I need them. If they could organize the whole population of Zimbabwe, ordinary villagers, ordinary workers, and turn them into a military force that could defeat the British, they have a particular capacity, vision. Most of the people in post-independence Zimbabwe, they lack vision. Many of your colleagues have land. Many of them have mining concessions. Many of them have things that they have been afforded to by the progress of our government. If many of my colleagues had land and government and concessions and businesses, you would be seeing all the veterans in town being the most prosperous people. But you said that there are very few war veterans in government, so that doesn't make sense. Yes. If there are few war veterans in government, it means those that are not war veterans in government have these benefits. Yes. The war veterans have been neglected. Yes, that's true. When it came to allocating, we did the land reform. Land reform, magadi kuti ma war veterans guy and the pam soro pe list. We have a civil service structure. Then we work as a government. War veterans are not the government. When it came to the actual allocation,
I mean, some in the army they did, some those who were organized they did, but by and large, the majority of the war veterans, they are destitute. Many of them they can't send children to school. They depend on pensions which are meager.
Yes.
They can't pay their hospital bills. Right now, some of them, they are being evicted from their land properties by those who feel that they've become powerful in government. These are the problems which I will be facing. I have to reconcile what my rank and file membership feels about the denial of opportunities by those who have been at the helm of government.
I'm just worried that
I'm hoping that those who have been at the helm of government, they take note, because we don't want to go back to what Woons did in the, to remind the country about the plight of the war veterans. That's not health for Zimbabwe. So I'm hoping that I can bridge the gap between, look, people get elected to office. I'm not challenging the democratic credentials of those who get elected, but I'm saying if you don't have the vision of those who fought at your heart and you don't interact with them daily, you're bound to go wrong.
You didn't have them at heart because you neglected them for years when you were getting your degrees, and then you came back, and now you're the chairman.
I didn't neglect
now
them
you're
for
the
years.
Chairman.
I didn't neglect. I only made sure that I get educated for the 5 years I lost, so that when I start debating with those who have the privilege of being in government, I can be at peer level to them. So I'm using that knowledge to remind those who are at peer level in government that we were smart. That's
so
what I'm
do you think
doing.
You're going to win, for example, to cover war veterans under something like the presidential scholarship? Are we going to look at prioritizing children of fallen war veterans and say, Piwa, my presidential scholarship? Something like the Defense Forces Initiative, Mushamukadzi, it's a brilliant initiative. Can we not say that the widows can also benefit from this?
We want to go beyond these welfare things.
Right.
We want to link, because we have found that because there's no vision about we want to create the capability of Zimbabwe. The best ideas about how this country should come forward, it comes from those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. The vision of this country will come from the war veterans.
So you're going to, how's that? So they're going to you're going to project these feelings and this vision onto your government.
We are going to make sure that we call the intellectual and ideological roots of the government to root. We are very competent. We are decision makers, and decision making comes from practice, not from university. We are the best. Look at the institutions of this country, which were the ones which have withstood the test of time. Our army, our police, our CIO. These are the centers of excellence. Look at the business side. No vision. The economy has collapsed. The war veterans are not there in the economy. We need to get, because they lack vision. We were the visionaries, and we are going to infuse this nation with the same vision we had in the 70s. We are going to make sure that Zimbabwe becomes prosperous.
All right. We have many comments here. Our WhatsApp platform 0772168045, and of course our live caller number. We have a caller on the line. Good evening. You're live on ZFM.
Yeah, good evening to you.
Good evening. Where are you calling from, sir?
I'm calling from Dombosha.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Noah.
Noah. Okay, go ahead.
I want to check with this gentleman. Chris is saying he's a comrade and he has got the discipline of the force. I wanted to check, how does he see the discipline vis-a-vis when you critically grade your senior, for example, somebody who is in a higher office than him. For rumors, I want to believe, because I think most of us, me, him, and the country, we haven't heard maybe the VP doing anything, speaking anything that might cause anyone to suspect his competition maybe with the president. So why would somebody then choose to be subordinate to a higher office? That's what worries me. I want to check with him, since he says he's been in the army and in everything of that nature.
Thank you very much for your call, Noah from Domboshava. Honorable.
Thank you, Noah. Dindingwe rino sika rimwe kana richarikweva kana rirozokweva roti mandazara ivhu. I actually had 2 hours of a meeting where the VP was piloring me before the president about my indiscipline. I'm now surprised to hear the First Lady actually saying that the VP has been doing all these things to her boss. So you must give me the good judgment that I realized that she was being insubordinate, and I came out and attacked her because she was one who was being insubordinate to her boss. So don't try to make the VP the number one person in this country. The president is the number one person in this country, and it's on. I was at Mazowo yesterday. You heard the first lady. That which God has put together, let no man put asunder. She is the first lady of this country. She knows what her husband has been going through, and she was letting it out. She's now telling the nation of what has been going through.
So you're saying the First Lady is projecting the thoughts and feelings of the president?
I would be most surprised if they are married if she doesn't. And the way it has turned out, she's actually saying the truth about what's the relationship between the vice president.
So when we listen to her and we read about what she's been saying, we must look at them as the thoughts of the president.
She must know what is going on. That's why marriage is sacrosanct. Don't underestimate the institution of marriage.
So is he using her as his mouthpiece?
No. She may not be being used by her, but she feels for her husband.
Let's get some comments here.
And that's what a proper wife does, to feel for your husband.
Oh, so she's feeling for her husband.
Yes.
Comments here. Hi there, I'm listening to Mutsvanga. My question to him is, what makes someone a comrade? I realize everyone is called comrade in ZANU-PF. Please take that as a rhetorical question. Let's take a call on the line. Good evening, you're live on Z. Okay, we lost that call. All right. Another comment. Hi, Ruveneko. Is Harare a center of power? I'm a little bit confused. If a chairman is saying that, I don't think war was fought in Harare mostly, just saying. I think that's a previous comment you might have made. But we do have a call on the line. Good evening. You're live on ZFM.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
What's your name? Where are you calling us from?
My name is Bingo. I'm phoning from Vuma.
Vuma. Please go ahead, sir.
My question to Mr. Mutsvanga is that why is he so bitter about the other people in his own government to the extent of calling Mutasa something? Is it like... is it true that he's got a grudge over him and his wife, maybe? If he can answer that. And also just to say, I think it's wrong for him to try and to speak on behalf of the president and the wife, suggesting that the first lady is speaking on behalf of the president. I think he doesn't have that right to say so. And I think he should just leave those things to the first lady.
Thank you very much, sir. Bingo from Vuma, you. Mr. Mutsvanga, please, could you address those questions, comments, statements?
I'm a war veteran. I fought for this war. I know when Mutasa came to the war, it was towards the end. He has enjoyed a lot of power since that, but he has fallen out with the president. They have not been loyal to the president, and he's not a very smart character, and he has said some very unsavory things, and he has been running Manicaland like it's his personal fiefdom, without any due regard to the rules and regulations of the party, of the tradition of the war veterans. It's my duty as a war veteran, as somebody who fought, as somebody who knows those who fought in the trenches and who fought in Zimbabwe, to come out. That's what, if we had not done that in the war, because we were voluntary fighters, we're not mercenaries, we fought because we're voluntary, I would be derelict of my duty to wave my flag, and I've waved a flag against him. That's equally why I waved the flag against Mujuru, and that's equally why I waved the flag against Gumbo.
I think you've definitely made that position.
This is a hierarchy. Right. The president is number one in that hierarchy. Don't try to make me owe allegiance to anybody who is subordinate to those against the one who is supreme, is the president.
Now, addressing the comment made by the caller, Honorable Mutsvanga, speaking, when you're talking about, subordination, speaking on behalf of the president, he said, please don't speak on behalf of the president. Do you have the authority to do that and tell us that the First Lady is projecting the thoughts of the president?
Every Zimbabwean citizen is right to speak in defense of the president, because that's what the Constitution of Zimbabwe calls for. But more so, every war veteran whose patron who has to, our president is our patron. But more than that, remember, we are a unit of the Zimbabwe National Army. We are part of the National Army. He is our commander-in-chief.
Are you know?
Yes, let me finish on that.
Okay.
And the vice president knows that the president is a commander-in-chief. She is not a commander-in-chief. And Mutasa and Gumbo and all these hangers on in that Politburo, they all know that the president is their leader. And we as the war veterans, who are a unit of the Zimbabwe Army, a reserve unit of the Zimbabwe Army, we will defend our commander-in-chief against anybody who tries to attack him. That's our allegiance to the nation of Zimbabwe and to the state of Zimbabwe.
Honorable Mutsvanga, while you're still on that note, just now you touched on the First Lady speaking and representing her husband's thoughts and feeling for her husband. Are you insinuating that the First Lady does not have a mind of her own? She is now a leader. The leader of the Women's League. So when you say she stands up there and does these Meet the People tours, you're making it seem as though she doesn't have any thoughts of her own.
No.
All she's doing is projecting the thoughts and feelings of her husband and sharing his sentiments.
Precisely because she knows and sentiments the feelings of her husband, who the Zimbabweans love dearly.
But
they are not, because she is speaking about the relationship between her husband and power, and those who are around their husband and power. So she knows what she's talking about. These are about national issues. And remember, we Zimbabweans have been observing the conduct of the first of the vice president for a long time. Given a choice between believing the first lady and the vice president, I will believe the first lady. I won't believe that vice president, because she has abused her relationship with her boss.
I think you've said enough about the vice president in her absence. She's not here to defend herself. So let's take a call. Let's take callers who can defend themselves.
I will defend my commander.
Good evening. You're live on ZFM Stereo.
Hello?
Hello, you're live on radio, sir.
Hi, I have a question for Chris.
Yeah, he's on the line. He can hear you. What's your name? Where are you calling us from?
Well, I'm on my way to Arua, so I've just started to talk to you.
Thank you.
Question is,
go ahead.
Sure. My question is there room for democracy in ZANU-PF? I know the war veterans are part of the party, but is there any room for discourse and discussion in ZANU-PF? Because it appeared to me, if anyone has a divergent view, it's construed as insubordination, it's construed as something completely different. Is there room for people to discuss and take the country, maybe, discuss their views, take their country in a different direction? Is that something that the war veterans are prepared to entertain?
Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
That's precisely what the war veterans brought to you, democracy. You wouldn't be saying that in Rhodesia. So first of all, just be thankful for the war veterans to give you the platform to be saying what you are talking about now. And for your information, to fight and die, the whole country, it was a voluntary act. People made individual democratic decisions to participate against Smith or not to participate against Smith. So the ethos of democracy, the people's law, is precisely what is the bedrock of Zimbabwean politics. That's different from disloyalty. You are trying to say people who are in positions where they are appointed by somebody and they cannot stand on their own. Why can't people form a party if they don't like the President Mugabe? Simba Makon formed his own party, Tekere formed his own party. Don't be disloyal to the president and try to pretend that you are loyal to him. That is the issue. That's an issue of treachery. That's an issue of disloyalty we are trying to deal with now. So make a distinction.
Honorable Mutsvanga, speaking of that, there's a comment here saying, Ruvi, please ask Comrade Chris Kutinzira, Zema Soja, dzinobvumirana here nekuti First Lady aite disrespect and denigrate the office of the Vice President of the country and Second Secretary of the party. I think he is a chancer and megalomaniac. Havana mukanwa babava. That's Simba Socks.
Baba kanota mayadoni.
Baba. The question rather is it fair does the army support that, anybody can, basically dress down the office of the vice president? She is the second, secretary of the party.
The moment she develops a deviant relationship with a person who appoints her, then she's fair game. She should decide. She has had 34 years of developing her own political persona. If she's bold enough, don't go under the underlings or the wings of Mugabe. Strike it out on your own, like Simba Makoni or Edgar Tekere. Don't pretend you are very loyal to the president and then do other things. We are dealing with disloyalty. We are dealing with treachery. We are dealing with cheating. We don't want that.
A comment from Isdo in Zengeza. I thought war veterans were for all Zimbabweans. How come they are more concerned with the welfare of ZANU-PF and not the social and political ills facing all Zimbabweans in general?
That's why I said our organization, because it is made of visionaries. We had the vision. That's why we could forgo our lives in the 70s. We were great visionaries. So if you try to read your history, you would know that we were otherwise you would be still in colonial Rhodesia. Be grateful to the visionaries which we were. And we are now going to harness that vision to deliver a new. That's why we could defend this country against Blair, against the Americans. We defended it more than anybody else with the war veterans. We have the vision. We are decision makers. We know what we want. We are now mature. We've watched everybody play on the stage. The New War Veterans Association, which I am leading, will put the vision back on the map. Right. And we know what we are talking about. Watch the space.
Speaking of watching the space, someone here says, what goes around comes around. A few years ago, Jabulani was in the very same shoes you are now. I hope they bring you to the radio station in some years' time. That's all we have time for on the platform. Honorable Mutsvanga, thank you very much for joining us on the platform. Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and the incoming chairman of the Zimbabwe Liberation of War Veterans Association. He is, not even incoming, the new chairman of the War Veterans Association.
I'm from the oven.
Thank you very much for joining us. Just some parting words for you, Honourable, which is a sort of a joint message here from our listeners. Welfare is a big issue. Education is a big issue. The widows of war veterans and the war veterans themselves, the land, the scholarships and all of that, they need assistance.
We want them to become business people.
Right. And of course, from us, please document history.
Yes.
People like yourself should be writing books. We should have movies to watch. We should have something to share with our children.
And children should be writing about all those war veterans in the rural areas.
You need to tell us more stories.
Universities, tell them. Go and do the research on that one.
You need to tell us more stories and stop fighting. Yes. Thank you very much. That's it from me.
I agree with you on that one.
We'll be back. I'll be back in a few minutes with a program with UNFPA. We are discussing sexual abuse and gender-based violence. Stay tuned to Z, my station, your station.
This is ZFM Stereo. The platform with Ruvenico on ZFM Stereo.
Catch me next time on Ruvenico.com.